Hello and welcome to another episode of Full Court Finance here at Zacks. I'm your host, Ben Rains, and this week we are going to be talking about Disney's new ESPN streaming service. It's been talked about for a long time and it's finally here. It's ESPN Plus. And I tried it out, and I want to just get into all of that. That the whole episode is going to be about ESPN Plus. That's all we're talking about today. So it debuted last Thursday, April 12th. It's been much anticipated. And I have to be honest, when I first heard about it, when they finally really broke down what it was going to be a few months ago, I was skeptical. I thought it pretty much seemed like a joke. A title of an article I wrote the day after Bob Iger announced it on Disney's first quarter earnings call. It was, Disney announces ESPN Plus. Is it too little, too late? And my closing line of my article that day was, but for now, this long-awaited ESPN Plus streaming service, which many investors hoped would be a standalone streaming version of ESPN, is currently just a $4.99 a month add-on for rugby and cricket fans. That seems like a quick, low-budget fix to a big-money, long-term problem. So I basically, when it came out, said, when they officially said what this is going to be, they didn't have a hard release date. I was very skeptical. Seemed kind of, you're going to pay $4.99 to watch some cricket games, and that's a very niche product. But we'll get into what it looks like now that it's actually out. So like I said, it launched last Thursday. I signed up for the free trial. So we'll see if I actually end up paying the $4.99 a month. But right now, anyone can sign up. I think in the first 7 days, if you sign up. So by the time you're hearing this, if you sign up in the next couple of days, you can get a 30-day free trial. And then you can cancel after that without being charged anything. But remember to cancel or they'll definitely charge you, because that's how all of those services work. But before we get into exactly what the new ESPN Plus streaming service looks like, I want to do a little bit of a backstory on why ESPN felt they need to do this streaming service. So ESPN lost about 2 million subscribers last year. They currently rest at about 88 million subscribers at the end of September. That was the end of their fiscal year, and it marks their lowest total number of subscribers since 2003. Their peak was at roughly 100 million in 2011. So they've lost about 12 million subscribers over the last 6 years, according to Nielsen. However, for all the talk about how bad ESPN is doing, and they are losing subscribers, ESPN still charges the most money. It's around $7 or $8 per subscriber for cable packages, and that's pretty much the most expensive non-premium network. So not HBO or Showtime or anything like that, but a basic cable offering that most people get on their cable package. ESPN charges the cable services such as Comcast or anything like that. They charge them about $8 a user. And that is up 54% from 2011. So at the same time they were losing all of these subscribers, they're charging now 50% more than they were when they were at their peak. And what this means to me, at least, is that people who were ESPN subscribers weren't necessarily wanting ESPN. They just had cable television. And now that they're cutting cords, like everyone knows that phrase, cord cutters, people are just getting rid of cable. Those people weren't necessarily even watching ESPN at the time. They just had ESPN as part of their cable package. And now those people are leaving, and maybe live sports was never something they cared about. So ESPN still, and as I said ad nauseum on this show, live sports is really the only thing people care about watching live. The money's still going to be there. That's the only reason lots of people, including myself, still have cable, is to watch live sports. So I'll get into it more at the end about maybe what ESPN could do long-term in streaming, but that's just a little picture of, for as many subscribers as ESPN has lost, they're still charging these cable providers a lot of money, and even more than they were before. But that was a long preamble to today's topic. So Disney announced their streaming ESPN service all the way back in August of 2016. So it's been in the works for almost 2 years after Bob Iger Disney's CEO, announced it. And they announced it after they purchased a majority stake in BAM Tech, which was the media leg of Major League Baseball that then spun off into this streaming business. Disney now owns a majority of it. They also run streaming services for HBO, WWE, the NHL, obviously Major League Baseball, and some other services. And now fast forward to what we have today. So last Thursday, ESPN introduced their new redesigned app, which is where this ESPN Plus service will live. And ESPN Plus, if you're ever looking it up to try it, it's ESPN. I mean, obviously, if you look up ESPN Plus, you'll find it, but they have it as ESPN and then the plus symbol. So ESPN introduced a new app. It looks relatively the same. You'll see some more rounded edges on their content in their pictures and their videos. It looks okay. I don't think, unless you were an everyday, all-day user of the ESPN app or their mobile platform or anything like that, you really notice that much of a difference. But we're not going to talk about the app that much today. But that is where this ESPN Plus service will be. So there's no ESPN Plus app. ESPN Plus lives within the ESPN app. So they wanted it to be kind of a catch-all, so people didn't have to have multiple ESPN apps, which makes sense, and I agree with them there. So the basic service for ESPN Plus is going to cost $4.99 a month, like I said, or $49.99 for a year. So if you get the yearly subscription, you save about $10. The app is initially presented by Audi, the car company, which is, I mean, it makes sense. They're just trying to get their name out there. And then the ESPN Plus is backed by American Express. So when you sign up for your free trial, Disney's saying that American Express is hooking you up with this free trial, but really that they're not hooking you up with anything. They're just hoping you like it, or they're hoping you forget that you signed up and they just keep charging you for it. And the exact quote in their press kit, their little media release for ESPN Plus, was ESPN Plus, the first ever multi-sport direct-to-consumer premium subscription streaming service from the Walt Disney Company's direct-to-consumer and international group in partnership with ESPN. So that's a mouthful. It sounds big. The first ever multi-sport direct-to-consumer. It's a streaming service. As I'll get into it, a lot of this that they're talking about has already been in place. A lot of the live sports they're talking about you could have watched on ESPN3, but I'll get into that in a little bit. So what exactly is Disney saying you're getting with this ESPN Plus app? They're saying you're getting thousands of additional live sporting events, original content, and shows, and on-demand video library. And like I said, the key word there is additional, and that's what they're hoping. It seems like it's so much more, but we'll see if that actually ends up being the case. Currently, it's going to be available on pretty much all the Amazon devices, most Apple devices, Google, Android phones, so Chromecast, stuff like that. So Google, Amazon, Apple, any of those services or platforms or devices, you're going to be able to use ESPN Plus in the new ESPN app. So what you're going to get, a little bit more of a breakdown of actually what's on this service. You have a daily Major League Baseball game and a daily NHL game, 7 days a week for baseball, because baseball never stops for the summer. NHL might have some off days in there where not one team is playing, though I don't know that's the case. But the NHL won't start until next season because the playoffs just started, so they do not have the rights to playoff games. So don't think you can download the ESPN app and watch all the NHL playoff games on there. You cannot do that. But Major League Baseball games, there will be one on a day or a night. There was definitely one on last night when I used it. I forget who was even playing at this point. And then what might be really attractive, and one thing that stood out to me, is MLS Live. So that's Major League Soccer. You get the full slate of out-of-market schedules. That's 250 Major League Soccer games this season, as well as, for me, we live in Chicago. They have a deal with the Chicago Fire to broadcast or stream all of their games that aren't on either Fox or the regular ESPN. So that's interesting. And what's crazy is that MLS Live, which used to be a standalone service, cost $80 a a year, and now they're just rolling it into this ESPN Plus for $4.99 free trial for a month. So I think that's crazy. So if you're a big Major League Soccer fan, that right off the bat might be worth it. You're paying almost half the price to get MLS Live and then all of this other stuff. So we'll see. The soccer fans are kind of at this point who streaming services are going after. They're the young millennials who are cord cutters. So maybe ESPN knows what they're doing there. And then you're also going to get college sports, mostly smaller conferences. You'll have football and basketball, baseball, but then you also have softball and soccer, track and field, gymnastics, swimming, lacrosse, wrestling, volleyball. So all of the non-revenue generating sports, you'll be able to stream some games. They say from 20 different conferences, but most of them are probably not going to be from the Power 5 conferences. But it's unclear exactly where that's coming from yet, at least from what I could find. And then you'll have some PGA Tour golf. Their exact quote is they're giving you 50 days of coverage from 20 PGA Tour events, including the Players, which is a big event, and the FedEx Cup playoffs, which is a pretty big event as well. So we'll see. And then they're talking about tennis, some Australian Open coverage, some Wimbledon coverage, and some US Open coverage. But ESPN already has all of that coverage. So this is what, as we get closer to these big events, we'll have to see what ESPN Plus is able to stream and what ESPN alone will stream or be live on television, because I doubt they're going to let the big events, like they're not going to have the men's final at the Australian Open on ESPN Plus. I just don't see that happening. They're going to want you to have actual ESPN, which makes them more money. And then they have the Canadian Football League for any Canadian football fans out there. And then you have some championship soccer, which is the level below the English Premier League in England. And then you also have League One and League Two. So if you're a big sort of low-level soccer fan of England, this is going to be big. And then this is the joke I made in my article about ESPN Plus a couple months ago. You have rugby and cricket. So if you're a hardcore sports fan and you really like cricket and rugby and championship soccer from England, maybe this is great. I don't know exactly who their audience is just yet, but you can also see where they're going with this. They're going to have more live sports, but then they're also going to have their full library of 30 for 30, so all of them are going to live on there. I believe Hulu used to have them, and I looked this up recently. Hulu, I think, used to have the rights for a while. They used to be all on demand, and those are widely popular. There's a bunch of them now at this point, and they're not on Netflix. They used to be on Netflix as well. So now I think the hope is maybe people love those so much that you'll spend the $5 a month just to be able to watch the archive of, it's got to be at least 60 of these so far at this point. And then their big pitch for why you might want to at least try the free trial is they're going to have the first ever debut exclusive to ESPN Plus of their newest 30 for 30, which is The Last Days of Night, which as Indiana University alumni, I'm pretty excited about because it is about Indiana's basketball coach, Bobby Knight, and kind of his falling out there at the university and the scandal of him reportedly choking out a player. So I maybe it might be worth downloading the free service for the next couple of days just to watch that. It's very interesting. And then they have Draft Academy on there, which has also been on. It's about NFL draft prospects, which has been on actual ESPN. A new show, which I couldn't really figure out if it had been on. It doesn't seem like it's been on television yet. They have a quest for the Stanley Cup, which ESPN doesn't really cover any NHL on. I mean, they do some stuff on SportsCenter, but there's no NHL games on ESPN. So with the one game a day, that's an interesting offer for NHL fans. And then they're going to have a behind-the-scenes documentary show, which I'm not a big NHL fan, but HBO used to do 24/7, which is their sports documentary series, where it would go behind the scenes for about a 4-week period with 2 NHL teams leading up to the Winter Classic. And that was much must-watch TV for me. So if they can hit on some of these original programmings, all of a sudden this $4.99 a month doesn't seem that big. Another thing that might get people in right away is Kobe Bryant has a show that's coming exclusively to ESPN Plus. So there's a lot of Kobe fanboys. He has fans all over the world, especially a lot of fans in China. He's widely popular still today in China, even though he retired a couple years ago. In the show, I watched the debut episode for about 5 minutes. It's him just talking about an individual game and breaking down like kind of a play-by-play from his perspective. And so the idea is that Kobe's going to maybe twice a week after every big ESPN Wednesday or Friday game, going to break down the game from his perspective the next day. I don't know if that's going to be riveting television to me. I'm a big basketball fan. I watched him breaking down I think it was some first round series versus the Nuggets from 2008. And I don't know who's going to want to watch this, but we will see. And then they're talking about some other NHL shows and ESPN FC, which is a soccer-based highlight and talk show, which is already on ESPN. So that's what I keep getting back to that. A lot of this stuff is already out there, and maybe they'll start taking it off ESPN. So the people who like that will then have to buy this service as well. So we'll see. And that's pretty much all you're getting right there. That's all they're offering right now. And it's pretty funny because I was looking through all this stuff about what they're offering, and I was like, oh, wow, they have a new show from LeBron James and one of his business partners, Maverick Carter. I was like, oh, that's great. It's called Becoming. It's about how different famous athletes got their start as young kids and just their journey. And then I looked it up. Well, I watched one of the episodes on ESPN Plus, and I was like, that's not what LeBron looks like anymore. He hasn't dressed like that in a while. That outfit looks non-2018 LeBron. And then I looked it up on IMDb. The show came out in 2015, and they're touting it in their media guide for ESPN Plus. Oh, LeBron James show, a show that's been on television 4 years ago, like 3 years ago. You're telling me, oh wow, this is great, brand new, awesome stuff from ESPN. So I think that might rub people the wrong way, especially if they really look into this. Because if you don't, it sounds like all of this stuff is brand new to ESPN Plus, which I think is a little misleading. But it's ESPN's new president, Jimmy Pitaro, who replaced John Skipper a couple months ago. Skipper retired kind of unexpectedly. So this is his first big move, even though it's been in the works for a long time. So he said in an interview that they're really trying to expand their audience across more demographics, and that for now that ESPN Plus they see it as a complementary offering to ESPN, which for me, it seems like, yes, it's complementary in the sense that they're asking you to pay $5 for a lot of stuff that you could already get. And he's talking about audience expansion, and he says that this is maybe going to be a trial for just the direct-to-consumer. They haven't really done direct-to-consumer yet since ESPN3 was through cable providers, and they really want to understand how to offer a personalized service. And it's going to be pretty fluid for now, so they might make changes in a month. Who knows? Maybe they have a lot more content in there in the next couple weeks. We'll see. But yeah, it doesn't have a lot. So if you get this thinking you could cancel your cable subscription and all of a sudden watch NBA games or the college football slate on Saturday or Monday Night Football or big time college basketball, none of that is going to be on ESPN Plus. And that's what ESPN offers. That's why I have ESPN for college football Saturdays, for NBA games on Wednesday and Friday nights, for college basketball and Monday Night Football. And none of that is going to be on here, which makes sense. They don't want people to not subscribe, but it seems like they're saying a lot's going to be offered, thousands of hours of additional live sports, but additional is the key word in the sense that it's a lot of ancillary sports that unless you're a real hardcore sports fan, you really might not care about at all. But why they did this is they have to try something. So Disney's media networks revenues were flat last quarter. That includes ESPN. Even though their cable networks revenue were up about 1%, ESPN was down. So that was propped up by Disney Channel and Freeform, which are non-sports related at all. Their Disney Studio Entertainment was down. What actually propped up their revenue most was their parks department. Their parks, their theme parks. So they were up 13%, and that's now the second biggest moneymaker there. It made like just over $5 billion, which is just $1 billion less than their media networks. But like I said, I encourage people to at least try this ESPN Plus app out. It's free for now, so give it a shot. Maybe you disagree with me. But what I think for now is that this is just the start of what could be an amazing standalone Disney streaming service that I think could easily compete. I would pay $10 a month, similar to Netflix, for what down the line I see it being is this. And this is not some brand new original idea to me, but my thought is that when Disney has a standalone app, and if it doesn't do this when it comes out next year, I think it's going to be a disappointment, because I think they could roll every Disney media outlet, so it would be all Disney movies ever made. So that's now Marvel and Star Wars, every ABC show, original live ESPN programming. And if this Fox deal goes through, then they get Fox television shows, Fox movies, and all of Fox's regional sports networks in their coverage. I mean, that right there then is way, way different than $4.99 a month thing to watch cricket. So we'll see if that ends up being the case. But for now, I think this streaming service for ESPN won't do that much, and the new president of ESPN even said it's probably not going to make them much money. So we'll see how that works out down the line. But yeah, maybe in the future it'll look a lot different, but for now I think it's kind of boring and unimpressive, and I don't think Disney stockholders will be very happy about this is their new big ESPN Plus. So we'll have to see though. And that does it for another episode of Full Court Finance. Until next time, I'm your host, Ben Rains. And remember, if you have any questions, please feel free to shoot us an email over at podcast@zacks.com.